안녕하세요. 처음 뵙겠습니다. 저는 소소입니다. 감사합니다. Alright. IVE, this is their debut single, I believe, and it's called 11. Let's check this out. Now that's a very strong debut for sure. Very interesting things going on. So the vocals pretty light and airy, you know. They I mean, as a girl group, so they're gonna have some higher registers. Let's see. Almost good contrast between the sections as far as what's going on in the mix. The percussion is so like poppy and bubbly, and I describe this sounds as like very round, you know. Sometimes percussion can be like very sort of pointed, like punchy, like tat tat tat, right? And sometimes it can be kind of flat. This is when, you know, like you hear a kick and it really feels like it's the bottom of something, like you know, you'll feel it pair up with the bass very, very sort of consistently. They form the bottom. But this type of percussion, to me, I call it bubbly because it almost seems to lift, you know, like bubbles coming up out of the seafloor or something, you know, like a boom, 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 like the way the pocket around it is engineered the way it's EQ'd, and the specific type of percussion instruments that are being used. A little bit of pitch percussion, something like a marimba, something like that. Although it could be synth, I'm not sure. It could be an actual played like a marimba, a pitch percussion instrument, and then the production and the engineering that's applied to it. But it really has that bubbly sort of character to it, and it's a bit more minimalist, like for your verse sections. And then an interesting thing that goes on with in sort of classical composition, they call it a retard, right? It's when when it slows down, right? It's a very risky thing to do. It used to be a rule that you never ever, well, you can slow down, but you try to avoid doing that, slowing down, speeding up. That it used to be more of a like a rule that you want to keep it consistent as far as that, but it works really nicely right before the chorus comes in. Everything sort of winds down, and then pulls you back in with a lot more sound. Like the mix becomes very full. Then it's not just the percussion that's going on. There's all kinds of other sounds filling out the space that's in between the bass, the percussion, and the vocal melodies that are going on. Really, really interesting choice. I mean, bold move for a debut. To come out. It's a very, very strong way to introduce yourself, I guess, right? To choose that kind of styling. So interesting phrasing too as far as the vocals. This is in 4, and there's very much like a strong sort of 4 count that's going on. And I noticed that in some of the verse phrasings, the vocal part sticks to the 4, and then the way the phrasing is cadenced, it will break away from that and become a bit more melodic, a bit more legato. And then it goes into that slight retard where it kind of drops the tempo a little bit before whipping back up into the chorus. It's an interesting composition for sure. A very neat, very cool thing to do. Let's see. Very I'm not sure what that is. It's a stringed instrument for sure that's being plucked. Reminds me of the gayagum. And then a little bit of a vocal motive there with very heavy compression on it. Sounds like it's filtered, like grainy, almost like it's coming through a telephone. Very interesting colors. Very good visuals with this too. That's what I was gonna say. The way this video is shot, it's definitely this is a in studio kind of a thing where you shoot with a green screen or a blue screen or something like that. But it does a lot of interesting things visually with the space. Some good shots, some really great shots in here. But yeah, interesting sort of setting the colors both in the audio and in the visual at the beginning here. That was very clean, right? When that came in, like it was a little bit of ambience, a little bit of swirly sound, that graininess, and then the like the compression just ramped up and then it like it was a very, very clean transition from the intro into the first verse here. So see in the beginning phrasing, da 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 da, like it's really sticking to that count, and now it's much more melodic. Right now it's like, oh, it feels much more song-like, and it's very smooth. It's very legato. Their vocals are very, like I said, naturally they have like a higher register to them, but it's, I describe them as sort of narrow because they have like a definite like space in the mix. This is like, you can hear it. You can hear like if you think of it as well, I don't know. I always think of it as like sound is, it's like waves. So a sound emanating from a source, it's almost like you could grab it and sort of like pull it and separate it from everything else that's going on. And it's very easy to do that with their vocal parts. Just the tone of them, the overall, it's to do with the engineering, also the EQing on these particular vocal parts, but their register and tone to begin with is what's necessary, right? But their voices sit in a very, very easy to pick out and intuit sort of spaces within the mix. It's like singing with your head voice, right? You'll feel a little bit of a buzz here. You'll feel like vibration. If the voice is up more in the front, you'll feel it like right here. If the voice is more so in the back, you can kind of feel it back here. But I'm listening, as their individual parts go, and I feel that head voice space, like they're right up in front. And it's pretty cool, actually, as far as the production is, aspect of it. Very cool use of a sort of retard, bringing the tempo down there. Feels like something winding down, right? Like a ding, 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 and then it's gonna pop back up again. Yeah, and what I noticed just now, the vocals are very much sitting at the center of the mix, and that poppy sort of bubbly percussion is going on all over the place, right? And I'm hearing mostly the low end, probably the kick, going off in the right, and I hear a lot of higher pitched, more narrow tube like pitch percussion going on in the left, and it's a balancing act, right, between those two aspects, and then that vocal part sitting right in the middle. It's very pleasant, actually, to hear. Big sound. So big sound here, a lot more sounds coming in as on the instrument side. The percussion got huge here, like a massive kick comes in. The pitch percussion is still there, just like it was before, but now it's really sitting on top of like all this extra like low end percussion sound that's coming, and the contrast between the individual sung melody parts. Now the chorus comes in, and it is choral. It's everybody singing together, so it's huge. It's a massive sound. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You make me feel like 11. Very clever songwriting. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You make me feel like 11. I guess, because it's like one more than 10, right? Like one on a scale of 1 to 10, it's like, no, you take it all the way up to 11. That's very catchy. Yeah, this is a great debut. Like, to come out with this as your first single, man, this is very interesting. It's, it feels like the genre, but it also feels very sort of specific and original. That's a great sound too. What I think it's reminded me of a gayagum. It's definitely plucked strings, but it's a great sound, especially with everything else sort of dropped out for those couple of bars that are going on there. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great contrast. It's a great contrast. So I'm like it's sounding like 16th notes, like 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, right? They're not using the entire 1E and it's just certain. It's like the ands and the us in specific parts. It's very much in line with the percussive rhythms that are going on. Like it seems to be informed by that. The vocal phrasing, at least on the verse part, seems to be heavily informed by what the percussion is doing, and it's cool. It's a very fun thing to do. So that little vocal motive that was in the intro is back in this. I didn't notice it in the last chorus, but it probably was there. But you hear that right? That was in the beginning intro part. So it's a callback to that, as well as that plucked string sound. That's, I think it's going to show up here again before it goes back into the verse or the bridge part. Right back into it. There's interesting compression on the vocals on that part too. It's very specific. It makes sense too, because they would function a little bit differently in like the middle of the mix, I guess. But when that retard comes in, everything sort of winds down. You have a lot of sounds that are dropping out. So there is something specific being applied to the vocal percussion in that part. I mean the vocal compression in that part, so that it sort of tapers off, like along with the drop in the tempo there. It's really interesting. Like, I would like to see this, in Pro Tools or whatever. Like I would like to see what it looks like specifically, because it's really, really kind of a curious thing. Nice way to end too. Everything drops out on a percussive hit right before you just have the vocal part. Again, with that specific type of compression being applied there, so that it's nice and clean. That's the whole point, is that it's not like messy and you don't have sort of swimming sounds and echoing stuff going on. It's done to make it very clean. Yeah, well, this is like I said, this is a good, strong debut. It's very interesting. It would stand out. It would like be like, oh, who's this? This is something new. This is something a little bit different, you know. Yeah, very interesting. The what was going on with the percussion there almost, reminds me of like the Neptunes, like, kind of that kind of stuff. Maybe even like Timbaland, like some of those, you'd have to, it's kind of a throwback to like early 2000 stuff. I mean, what I'm referencing, not necessarily the sound, but that's what it reminds me of if I had to reference something from the past. But it's very cool. It's just a very cool production and track too. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's a great song. It's a great song. Music video had great visuals. I like the what was being done with space there, and there's different shots. You'd get a change in color, and then you'd also get a change in the way that space was sort of being used, in some of those shots where it kind of had them in like a tunnel-like structure, and then other shots were open, standing on top of the I think it was like a phone booth or something, but then the backdrop is just sort of it's just black, and it implies like all this space, so there's a change in visually the amount of space that's being represented there as the colors change, right? You have a change in tone, you have a change in space. Conceptually, it's very much what happens musically in a lot of compositions and in a lot of mixes too. A very clever use of that retard just before the chorus part to it's a different ways, like everybody builds up to that chorus, you know what I mean? Some people do it by adding a little bit more, and then you finally get there and it's like, here's everything all at once. Others will do it by sort of taking out, right, by going more minimal as the chorus approaches, and then bam, you get everything back in. So this was a clever change, different style of doing that, right, by actually changing the tempo of the song. It's a bold move. It's a bold move, but everything is so clean that it works really well. Yeah, this is clever production behind it. I believe I can't remember the name of the production group, but I believe this is like fairly like they're fairly new, like not brand new, but they haven't been around as some of the other production groups that are out there. So it's like I mean, they took a risk, you know what I mean? They took a risk. They were like, something different, can we do it? Can we pull it off? Well, let's just go for it anyway, So the production talent's definitely there, and the girls sounded great. Like I said, their vocals just have like a very light, airy, sweet kind of quality to them in all the parts, and then they're able to distribute those voices. It felt very sort of horizontal, right? Very lateral, right? As opposed to the voices being stacked on top of each other when the chorus part came around, and it got very choral, and you had to create that contrast between the individual melodies that were being sung in the verse and the sort of choral parts that were going on once that chorus came around. And great choreography too. It's really fun choreography. That's one of the things that I sort of smiled and laughed at, is because not just the cleverness of the lyric, but also the choreography that's going on. It's good, man. It's good. Like they're a very good group. They're very good, new younger sort of group that's out there. And of course, we've already done a couple of videos by IVE. So I said, well, I better go back and check out, you know, what the debut track was, what that first video was like, and didn't disappoint at all. You know what I mean? Like, this was very cool. This is very cool on many different levels. Man. So yeah, I just a different, unique approach. They took a risk. It paid off. They're a solid group, like I've said before. So we'll definitely keep checking out more from IVE. That's for sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you make me feel like 11. It's very clever, man. It's super catchy. Yeah. Okay, that was 11 by IVE. Great track, great production, and a bold debut effort for sure.